It's spooky season and time to confront evils of all kinds, including the demons that spread ideas that can destroy the world. This Halloween, I have decided to face a devil called the Communist Manifesto. A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism. This is the opening sentence of the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, released in 1848. If you think calling your economic philosophy a specter, a spirit of terror, is a bit unusual and perhaps demonic, you would be right. Some argue that they were just mocking opponents of communism. Were they? It's very notable considering Marx's early fascination with the two-part drama Faust and his early poems about the devil. This specter is still haunting the world today. The Communist Manifesto, according to one of its own authors, is undoubtedly the most widespread, most international production of all socialist literature. Even with its word salad style by a proclaimed poet, it still seems to attract some of the more naive members of society. According to Engels, the Manifesto was a joint production between him and Marx, but he credits Marx with developing the fundamentals that formed the philosophy. I wouldn't want to take credit either. They proclaim that all people in a society fall under two categories. Either you are oppressed or you are an oppressor, and it is your economic status that determines which of these two you are. If you have money, land, or a business doing well, you are an oppressor. If you don't, you are oppressed. Engels says in the preface that the working class must rise up, but they cannot simply lay hold of the ready-made state machinery, aka steal it, and wield it for their own purposes. They suggest later it must be destroyed, and they mean this quite literally. Part 1 is titled Bourgeois and Proletarians, the bourgeois being the oppressors and the proletarians the oppressed. Marx says that throughout history, there has only ever been this kind of class dynamic, and always will be, even though there would be new established classes, new conditions of oppression, and new forms of struggle in place of old ones. The authors say that the discovery of America opened up fresh ground for the bourgeoisie. Explains why they hate America so much. In America, the oppressor class was established and was able to create modern industry and become industrial millionaires. These millionaires stripped all occupations of honor and used physicians, lawyers, priests, poets, and men of science to gain more wealth for themselves. That part does sound right, but right about the wrong side. Engels then goes on to say that only open revolution and violent overthrow of the upper classes is what will enable the working class to hold sway in society, and that the upper class's existence is no longer compatible with the rest of society, that they have produced their own gravediggers. Kinda sounds like he just wants to be a mass murderer, but doesn't have the stomach for it. So he's calling on others to do the dirty work for him. Typical communist. In part 2, these two express that communists' only interest is the struggles of the working class, even over the interest of their own country, and that their only aim is the conquest of the upper classes. Sure, Jan. They sum up communism in a single sentence: abolition of private property. They then scoff at the ideas that private property lays the groundwork for personal freedom, activity, and independence. They mock the ideas that private property is hard-won, self-acquired, and self-earned, insinuating that anyone with private property did not obtain it through these methods. They argue that capital or money should not be used for personal advancement, but for social advancement. So all money should belong to everyone. They claim that the upper classes speak out against this because it will abolish individual freedom. Their rebuttal? Rightly so. The abolition of individuality, independence, and freedom of the upper classes is undoubtedly the aim. You know, for a group who believes that capitalists care too much about money, they sure do seem very concerned about it themselves. Later, in part 2, it goes on to say, in bourgeois society, the past dominates the present. In communist society, the present dominates the past. Why does that sentiment feel familiar? They next cry out for the abolition of the family with an exclamation point. They claim that the upper classes only have families for private gain, that they only have children to exploit them for capital. They shout guilty as charged when it comes to wanting to rescue children from their family unit that only exists for their shared economic interests. And their education should be intervened upon by the communists. Women, too, should be saved from their bourgeois husbands who secretly pass them around to their bourgeois buddies. The communists would never do this. They would do it openly. But before they can establish all of this, first, the revolution by the working class must happen to raise the proletariat to the position of the ruling class and establish democracy. They mean pure democracy, as in majority rules, even if the majority is wrong. So if the proletariat is now the ruling class, and all people only fall under two classes, oppressed and oppressor, then isn't the new ruling class the new oppressors and should be destroyed? Oh wait, they're different. Part 2 ends with 10 measures they wish to accomplish. Number 1, abolition of property. So no one but the state can own land or housing. Number 2, a heavy, their words, not mine, progressive income tax. Number 3, abolition of all right of inheritance. So any money or property your parents earn cannot be passed on to you. Guess who it is passed on to? 4, confiscation of property of all immigrants and rebels. So those that oppose communism. And who does it go to? Oh, right, the state, the new ruling class. 5, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of national bank and state capital and an exclusive monopoly. So they'll control your money. 6, centralization of the means of communication and transport in the hands of the state. So they'll control how you can communicate and where or if you can travel. 7, extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state. The bringing into cultivation of wastelands, and the improvement of the soil generally in accordance with a common plan. They don't say what that plan is, and production of goods, including food, will be under the control of the state. 8, equal obligation of all to work, establishment of industrial armies, especially for agriculture. So you'll be forced into specific kinds of work, and the state will be probably guarding the food for some reason. 9, combination of agriculture and manufacturing industries. Gradual abolition of the distinction between town and country by a more equitable distribution of the population over the country. So the state will tell you where to live. 10, free education for all children in public schools. Abolition of child factory labor in its present form. Combination of education with industrial production. So child labor that they'll call education. These are the ultimate goals they want to force upon all societies. Now, some don't give people enough credit, but it seems Marx gives them too much credit. He seems blind to the fact that these goals, carried out to their logical conclusion, only leads to tyranny, misery, and starvation, as we have seen throughout history, time and time again. They finish up by saying that communists everywhere support every revolutionary movement against the existing social and political order of things. Really? No kind of scrutiny or philosophical boundaries the movement should be measured against? Just every revolution, anywhere. And revolutionary movements against communist societies too? Sounds like a thirst for blood rather than equality. The last paragraph says that communists should openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. All? So what's left? Also, can any idea that can only be established among society through force really be that good of an idea? The Communist Manifesto is nothing but one big bitch fest by a man who never built anything or actually knew anything about the working man's struggles, because he lived off his father's money and then his wife's father's money. No one with any sense or experience would take these men's philosophy seriously, or anyone who spews this pathetic rhetoric. This is the most hypocritical piece of writing I have ever come across. And if you don't believe me, all you have to do is read it for yourself. Happy Halloween. If you liked this video, please leave us your feedback with a comment or like, and subscribe or follow so you don't miss any of these uploads.